Hello and good morning. Welcome to Let's Talk About Us. I'm Zach, and today we're covering a story that the left did not want you to hear, either because they didn't think it was important, they're not really interested in it, it doesn't line up with their message, or maybe it's just a nothing burger. We'll see. We are using CNBC. It only has one lean left rating, but two center ratings. Has a high factuality rating and a mixed factuality rating. It's owned by the media conglomerates NBC Universal and Comcast, as well as the Roberts family. More than 46 million early voters already cast ballots as Harris and Trump enter final sprint. This was published yesterday by Rebecca Pachotto. More than 46 million Americans have cast their ballots in the 2024 election as of Tuesday morning, according to NBC News Tracker, accounting for over a quarter of the anticipated electorate. Both nominees, Vice President Kamala Harris and former President Donald Trump, have encouraged the voters to get to the ballot box as soon as they can. With 1 week until November 5th, early voting is underway in all 7 battleground states, along with dozens of others. Reports of hour-long lines outside polling places have already sprouted up on social media as voters flood the limited number of municipal spaces set up to accommodate early voting. While millions of Americans have stood in the line to cast ballots in person, another 20 million have mailed in their ballots. The 46.5 million early voters are almost evenly split between ballots cast in person and by mail, according to the University of Florida's Election Lab. Some states, such as the key presidential battlegrounds of North Carolina and Georgia, have reported that their early voter turnout is setting records this election cycle. In North Carolina, 353,166 ballots were accepted on the first day of early voting on October 17th, beating the 2020 first day record according to preliminary State Board of Elections data. As of Tuesday, more than 2.7 million votes had been cast across the state, according to NBC News. Georgia also smashed its first day early voting record with an estimated 310,000 ballots cast on October 15th. By Tuesday, just under 3 million ballots had been received. These historic voter numbers are testing the limits of America's early voting infrastructure, which operates with only a fraction of the workers and polling locations that will be open on Election Day. Early voting aims to give Americans more convenient alternatives to casting their ballots on Election Day. In some states, early voting also allows election officials to get a head start on processing or counting votes, to help distribute the workload of vote tallying over several days. Election and voting laws are enabled by individual states, not by the federal government. This creates a patchwork of election operations across the country, each governed by its own rules. Arizona, Michigan, and Nevada, for instance, are permitted to start counting their ballots before November 5th. But in Georgia, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, counting may not begin until Election Day. Early votes made up roughly 2/3 of the ballots cast in the 2020 election, according to the Associated Press. This massive total, more than 100 million votes, was driven largely by the unique efforts of the COVID-19 pandemic on American civic life. While early voting data can provide helpful signs of initial patterns within the electorate and voter enthusiasm, it is not a predictive measure of Election Day outcomes. Well, right, because so many states just they can't even, like it said already, in a few states they can't even start counting until Election Day, so we won't really know anything until November 5th. And then I do have a cool little video from Florida to show you guys.
There are just 9 days left until Election Day, and many all across South Florida are getting their vote in early. We have Local 10 Samir Nefsi joining us live from Pembroke Pines with more on what's driving voters to the polls. Samir.
Yeah, JC, so early voting has been ongoing since October 21st across Florida. And here in South Florida, we can tell you hundreds of thousands already turning out to do so. You can see many people out here at the Pembroke Pines location. Of course, we have
I'm assuming he
candidates,
means like
as well as
throughout the last few
trying
weeks,
to
hundreds of
push
thousands.
those last-minute votes or persuade voters as they make their way inside to the voting poll. Early voters in Broward County greeted by
like that.
swarms of candidate supporters.
Those are
We'll
cute
have to
hat.
get our vote in
Little
today.
yellow buckle
He
and
and
stuff on there.
others stopped by one of the Pembroke Pines precincts to cast their vote.
Just to take advantage
I thought it was
of
yellow
the
at first
less
because it was in the
time
sun,
in
but it's
line.
like a
And
little beige
today the line
fedora.
was about an hour waiting. I think we have a lot of participation in this election. I think it's one of the most important elections in our times.
And turnout there has been across Broward County thus far. with more than 183,000 early voters in Broward County as of Sunday. Over in Miami-Dade, nearly 264,000.
It is really encouraging.
Says Dorothy Pinnacook moments after voting.
I waited in line for an hour, but I'll wait for
An
6
hour?
hours to have to vote.
I think like early,
Because
like
everything is
you
at
wouldn't
stake
think
from
so,
this
but
election. It is
that's
really
crazy.
important for me to
waiting
vote
in line
here.
for an hour just
And
to
it's
vote,
that passion that
and
has led
it's not
many
even
to the
election
polls
day. Like,
early, with just 9 days
That's
until the
insane.
election.
Like they say at most elections, yeah, there's a hell of a lot at stake, yes.
And that is something many people have told us, is that these stakes just feel higher in this election, which has obviously brought people out to the polls. You can also tell you, of course, some people telling us they're out just because they don't want to wait in those long lines, especially on election day specifically. There are
Fair.
still wait times if you are coming out to the early voting location or the precincts. We can tell you early voting continues until November 3rd. Precincts open at 7 a.m. and go till 7 p.m. We're live in Pembroke Pines. I'm Samir Nafsi, Local 10 News.
All right, Samir, thank you. And let's continue with that because millions of people across America have already voted. Here's a look at the latest early voting numbers in South Florida.
Yeah, this is just in
Miami-Dade, more than
Florida.
266,000 people have cast their votes early, and more than 183,000 have been sent in with those vote by mail ballots. In Broward, more than 185,000 people have arrived early at the polls to vote, and more than 172,000 has sent in their ballots by mail. Let's go to Monroe County now. More than 8,000 people have cast their votes early there, and 11,000 have sent them in by mail.
all right. So I think I know why the left didn't cover this. The left has been doing early voting for forever now. Like many of the states that are left-leaning or led by Democrats have had early voting laws in effect for a while, but I think this is the first election, at least in a long time, where a lot of Republicans are actually getting out early to vote. And so I think that's why the left isn't covering this, because this is nothing new to them, but it is something new for the right wing. Yeah. This has been Let's Talk About Us. I'm Zach, and I hope you all have a good day. Enjoy your Wednesday, and make sure that you get out and vote, all right? I'll see you tomorrow.